Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us for this session. To begin, you might be wondering, what does music education have to do with sustainability? Well, it turns out that it has quite a bit. And I'm sure all of us here would agree that music has a unique power to engage hearts and minds. This can make it an ideal way to spark thinking about biodiversity and climate and connect people with nature. It can inspire activism, express concern, foster empathy for the planet, and help learners imagine sustainable futures through creative projects. Yet, of course, the music industry and education sectors also contribute to environmental challenges. Think of the energy demands of streaming, the manufacture and disposal of instruments, equipment, and resources, and the carbon footprint of touring, festivals, and concerts. Even seemingly green choices like shifting from paper scores to digital can hide impacts linked to device production and cloud storage. And as musicians, as teachers, we're in a brilliant position to model thoughtful choices, repairing and repurposing gear, reducing travel where we can, and questioning the allure of constant upgrades. By showing that creativity thrives on care for the planet, we can lead by example and help our students see sustainability as part of what it means to make music today. Of course, things are not so simple. One of the greatest challenges we face as musicians and educators is not simply knowing what needs to change, but developing the courage, expertise, and creativity to translate those insights into actions of varying degrees that hold genuine potential to reshape our everyday practice and offer the prospect of meaningful impact towards environmental change. Another challenge is, of course, that we all have different roles, responsibilities, and levels of influence within our music education work. And this means that we have varying levels of agency to advocate for, facilitate, and enact change. That's why I was so excited to learn of Music Mark's This Is Not a Rehearsal campaign. And of course, hugely honoured to be approached to undertake this piece of research into environmental sustainability practices in music hubs and services as part of that campaign. And in this first brief presentation, I'm going to offer a summary of the research we undertook and our findings overall. We'll then have a bit more time to dive into several areas I'd like us to explore in a little bit more detail. I can only scratch the surface today, and you can, of course, find the full report online on the Music Mark website. It's quite long, and I'll make no apology for that, because we wanted to reflect the sheer amount of hard work, good practice examples, and critical engagement with which we uncovered within the sector. There was far more than we were expecting, which was very encouraging and reassuring. But there is an executive summary, and on the Music Mark website, there is an even more digested set of key points. We've also recently recorded a podcast in which I outlined some of our findings and discussed these with Ruth Roberts from Kent Music and Hannah Mears Young from the National Youth Folk Ensemble. So how did we go about this research? Well, the project was carried out by a small team from UCL, essentially me and my colleague Emma Arnott, and Emma would have loved to have been here today, but unfortunately was unavailable. And we also had great technical and logistical support from Professor Evangelos Simonides. We are also deeply grateful for the support received throughout this project from colleagues in all areas of the sector who assisted in distributing and completing our questionnaires, undertook interviews, and contributed case studies. The research was conducted over 5 phases, and in total, despite some potential for double counting due to anonymity, responses were included from over 150 professionals across all UK nations, providing a robust evidence base. The study combined qualitative and quantitative data and was undertaken under full UCL ethical approval and GDPR compliance. So what did we find? Well, firstly, some good news. We discovered a really wide range of music teaching and learning activities linked to environmental topics in the UK music service and hub sector. These are creative and varied, both in scale and approach. They can succeed in engaging young people in connecting music with local environmental contexts, fostering awareness and advocacy. Here are just a few examples, and there were many others as well. Portsmouth Music Service, for example, has undertaken a junk percussion programme of hands-on workshops using recycled materials to create instruments, combined with performances like recycling rumba, an approach intended to link creativity with environmental awareness and resourcefulness. Through collaborations with the RSPB and local schools, Waltham Forest Music Service has developed the 2 nature and song projects, where children explored local biodiversity and translated experiences into music, thus helping foster eco-literacy and a sense of place. Cornwall Music Service Trust is currently partnering with the community music organisation Global Jamming on the Symphony Woods project. This combines music composition with tree planting and ecological restoration, engaging young people in creating a symphony inspired by local woodland while contributing to biodiversity. If we had to identify distinctive features across all of the teaching and learning case studies highlighted in the report, we might note the integration of local ecology into creative work, the use of cross-curricular and multisensory approaches, the central roles afforded to youth involvement in design and decision making, and community engagement, all of which have potential to ensure relevance and agency. And in some cases, as in Cornwall, there is evidence of practical environmental action alongside music making, such as tree planting and recycling. However, challenges persist, including, of course, limited time, funding, and staff capacity, alongside uncertainty about how to deliver authentic and meaningful content, and difficulties in achieving buy-in from schools and freelance teachers. Concerns include avoiding tokenistic approaches and managing climate anxiety amongst learners. We discovered a strong demand then within the sector for practical support in this area, including ready-to-use teaching resources, professional development, case studies, and collaborative networks to share expertise. Overall, while enthusiasm and innovation are evident, scaling these efforts requires targeted guidance, funding, and sector-wide coordination to embed sustainability meaningfully into music education. As noted, young people are often at the heart of these initiatives, which is fantastic and extremely important, but some of our research participants cautioned against tokenism or overburdening students. It's a delicate balance. As you might expect, transport and logistics emerged as one of the most significant sustainability challenges for music services and hubs, primarily due to potential carbon impact of peripatetic travel across large and often rural areas. While many organisations have introduced measures such as revising timetables, clustering teaching assignments, and using online meetings to reduce travel, practical barriers remain, including poor public transport, the need to carry instruments, unpaid travel time, and limited funding for alternatives like electric vehicles and cargo bikes. We did, though, come across exploratory good practices pioneered by some services. In Leicester, for instance, the music service developed a digital provision model where local classroom teachers lead practical turntablism sessions whilst being supported remotely by music service specialists. These specialists join via a video link to provide live guidance, demonstrations and interactive feedback, ensuring high quality delivery without the need for extensive travel. Such an approach not only reduces carbon emissions, but also holds potential for building local teacher confidence and capacity through real-time collaboration with expert colleagues. In another example, Waltham Forest Music Service partnered with a local zero-emission delivery provider to transport instruments and equipment between schools, reducing reliance on staff car travel. Whilst obviously best suited to urban and denser locations, this innovative approach holds out the possibility of reducing emissions, yet also demonstrates the possibilities of creative partnerships in this area. Concerns persist, though, about managing equitable access and the value of face-to-face music making. This calls for sector-wide guidance on sustainable travel planning, the strategic siting of rehearsal and performance venues, and broader transport strategies for staff, pupils, and families. Further significant challenges are also unlikely to come as a surprise. Operational sustainability practices in music services and hubs show encouraging progress in areas such as managing paper use, recycling, and routine instrument repair, but significant challenges remain. Many organisations lack control over premises, making energy efficiency upgrades difficult, and funding constraints limit investment in sustainability procurement and building improvements. In just a few representative examples of good practices, though, Hounslow Music Service has trained staff in instrument repair and maintenance and also provides tutorial videos on instrument care for their pupils, seeking to reduce waste and extend the life of resources while building practical skills. Normans, the major instrument supplier, runs the well-known Retune recycling and repurposing scheme, ensuring that instruments beyond repair are dismantled responsibly and recycled, with usable parts recovered for future use, including in creative artworks. These and similar initiatives, whereby instruments beyond repair are donated to local school art departments or sold to upcyclers, not only cut landfill waste, but also form the basis of interesting circular systems within the music education sector. In Scotland, The Music Education Partnership Group and Tinderbox Collective are pioneering an innovative approach by conducting community amnesties for unwanted instruments, then pooling these for community use through local libraries, reproducing duplicated purchases and bringing existing and valuable resources back into use, all the time whilst improving access. We picked up on further ad hoc instrument pooling schemes between music hubs and services in England, and this is definitely an area where national sector and hub lead organisations could support with coordination. However, barriers include logistical complexity and gaps in staff knowledge about instrument lifecycle management and sustainable disposal. We picked up very strong demand for practical guidance on balancing economic and environmental considerations, signposting to repairers and recyclers, and training to prevent waste through better storage and maintenance. Challenges relating to both transport and operational support are areas where organisational policy can play a role. At present, we found that environmental sustainability policies are unevenly adopted, with just over a third of organisations having a formal policy and many others still developing one. Their effectiveness is mixed. Some provide useful structure and accountability, while others are seen as tokenistic or driven by external compliance rather than genuine ambition. All the same, we did come across some really interesting examples, both of policy itself, but also how this is developed and consulted upon, and I'll be coming back to this example from Merton later. Overall, though, we found that the sector needs practical guidance on policy development, clear frameworks for monitoring impact, and practical support for procedures relating to instrument repair, sustainable procurement, and meaningful youth engagement. Now, throughout my comments so far, you might have noticed that I am regularly coming back to the importance of youth engagement and partnership working in this area. And these were indeed central to our findings, and they are areas I will come back to later. For now, suffice to say that there was a strong demand for guidance on building resilient partnerships, frameworks for youth engagement, and CPD to equip staff with confidence and shared responsibility. It was clear that sustainability initiatives in our sector thrive when they are collective, inclusive, and embedded, rather than dependent on isolated champions, where there are associated risks of burnout and lack of continuity. So, where do we go from here? Substantial parts of the music hub and service sector are motivated and engaged, that's clear. But structural, financial, knowledge and logistical barriers mean progress is uneven. We hope the recommendations we provide in the report can assist with this. Firstly, sector organisations can take a leadership role in embedding environmental sustainability as a core priority across music education. This means championing sustainability alongside inclusion and access, creating practical toolkits and templates for policy development, and continuing to pursue campaigns to raise awareness. They should also facilitate peer learning networks, provide clear interpretations of policy, and advocate for targeted funding to support initiatives such as instrument repair and sustainable travel. Crucially, these organisations can amplify good practice and ensure that sustainability efforts are inclusive and youth-led, offering accessible entry points for services at different stages of readiness. Now, we of course recognise that they face many pressures and competing demands, but music services and hubs themselves can make a tangible impact by integrating sustainability into everyday operations and teaching. Prioritising repair and reuse of instruments, embedding environmental themes into repertoire and creative projects, and exploring low-carbon approaches to events are key steps. Partnerships with local environmental organisations and community groups can strengthen these efforts, while professional development opportunities, such as carbon literacy training, will help build confidence and capacity. Services could also consider digital delivery models where appropriate, balancing environmental benefits with musical and pedagogical quality, and of course safeguarding and cybersecurity, etc. However, this is an area where there is also need for critical thinking and careful assessment of the evidence. Hard copies of ensemble music, printed on paper sourced from well-managed forests and recycled properly after use, might well offer a clearer sustainability audit trail than kitting out a group with new tablets and investing in digital cloud storage with all the energy and raw materials that this requires. Individual educators can contribute meaningfully through small and manageable actions. These include, of course, reducing paper use, but also demonstrating the proper maintenance of instruments as part of the teaching process, and continuing to work with managers to plan travel efficiently as far as possible. Teachers can weave environmental themes into lessons where appropriate and encourage students to express their views through music making while sharing ideas with colleagues to build collective momentum. Engaging with available training and resources, supporting youth voice, and raising awareness respectfully within their settings are all important. Above all, practitioners should focus on what is within their control and celebrate incremental progress. So, music education has a unique role to play in fostering environmental awareness. Imagine a curriculum where sustainability isn't an add on, but woven into the fabric of musical learning. Imagine students not just playing instruments, but repairing them, reusing them, and understanding why that matters. I'll conclude by noting that sustainability isn't just about reducing carbon footprints, it's about shaping values, behaviours, and identities. And that's something that music education has always done brilliantly. So thank you very much. And if you do have a moment to browse the full report, you'll find a lot more on everything I've said so far and more. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ross. That was a whistle-stop tour of the research findings. And I know we're going to dive into a bit more detail on a couple of bits in a moment, but I just find it so interesting, many of the points that you've made, but specifically the bits around youth leadership, and something that our membership and the music education sector do so well in many areas. It's interesting that it's coming out as something that needs to be youth led as well in this area. So something for us to think about moving forwards. I wonder if you want to dive into a couple of sections more thoroughly, and then we'll come back to me to talk about what Music Mark's doing a little bit later on, and we can take some questions at that point. Just a reminder for participants, if you pop your questions in the Q&A, we'll get to them at the end. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Rosie. So we realise that suggesting to music services and hubs that they need to embed environmental sustainability into their everyday work is a big ask. We know the pressures that everyone in our sector work under, and we really don't want this to become one more area where there is a need to keep plates spinning on tick boxes. So we were very keen in the research to identify particularly helpful supportive approaches which could reinforce and amplify activity in meaningful and impactful ways. And areas of our findings which really stood out in this regard include the value of, firstly, partnership and collaboration, and secondly, as Rosie's just alluded to, youth involvement. And we observe both to be central to our effective sustainability work, with many successful initiatives built on partnerships with young people and between hubs and services, schools, local authorities, environmental groups, and cultural organisations. Now, there are, of course, many reasons why collaborations can be beneficial in this area, including how partnerships with environmental organisations can help music hubs and services audit their carbon footprint and identify quick sustainability wins. It can also mean that when considering integrating environmental themes into teaching and learning activities, one is drawing on the best, most accurate and up-to-date information. Collaborations with other organisations not only help share the financial load, but it can also pool expertise in applying for grants or accessing additional resources such as recycling facilities and educational materials. We know too that joint campaigns with sustainability organisations increased visibility and community engagement for hubs and services environmental work. Cross-sector learning and mutual support can also bring about less tangible outcomes, such as shared visions, greater resilience, enhanced well-being and motivation amongst staff, and, so we are told, better buy-in from senior management. Our report gives the example of Oxfordshire County Music Services Young Singers Concert, a collaboration with Oxford University Museum of Natural History. This one-term project brought together around 80 Key Stage 2 children for a biodiversity-themed concert in the museum's central space. The music service partnered closely with the museum's education officer, who led early handling sessions and guided the children through exhibits such as the dodo, extinct dinosaurs, and British butterflies. These visits deepen the children's understanding of the selected choral repertoire, most of which was linked directly to the displays. The final piece, celebrating the museum building and its colony of swifts, was specially composed by a music service staff member. Here, the museum's resources, I should say, enriched the musical learning, while the music itself enhanced engagement with science and nature. For many children, it was their first visit to the museum, making the experience even more impactful. The museum's generous support, providing staff time in the performance space, was crucial. In another example, The Isle of Wight Music Hub's Biosphere Big Sing event celebrated the island's achievement in obtaining UNESCO Biosphere Reserve status. With over 900 pupils from 9 schools participating, this was a collaborative effort with partners including a local composer, the Isle of Wight National Landscapes Organisation, English Heritage, a carnival arts company, and a local golf course. And the collective focus was on the local landscape, so it was obviously crucial to involve those charged with its stewardship. Of course, partnerships can also support operational areas, and a great example from our report comes from Norman's Musical Instruments, as I've mentioned, a major supplier in our sector, and I'm sure you know. They have worked closely with Staffordshire Business and Environment Network in order to obtain carbon literacy training for their staff and enhance energy efficiency of their premises. It's useful to remember that there are many local business networks, charitable and non-profit organisations who can advise on areas such as carbon literacy training and energy efficiency. We don't have to, and we shouldn't, try to reinvent the wheel. The other area I wanted to pick up on in a bit more detail is the importance of involving the children and young people we serve in decision making relating to matters of environmental sustainability. Again, this came through loud and clear in many of the examples of good practice we identified in our findings. Participants told us that it's important for young people to feel that their voices matter, fostering ownership and commitment to sustainability initiatives. Of course, they often bring innovative ideas and challenge traditional assumptions, leading to creative solutions. In particular, they can lead to decisions which reflect the priorities of those who will live with the long-term consequences of environmental change. Youth involvement also has the potential to inspire peers and family, amplifying the impact of sustainability campaigns. Importantly, too, it can help build skills in advocacy, negotiation, and project management, preparing young people for civic roles. Again, there are different ways to do this. In Portsmouth, for example, their long-running environmental campaign One World included a project whereby composers developed a repertoire of specially written songs, all based on issues requested by children, young people in their schools in response to key contemporary environmental issues. The aim was for these songs to resonate with young audiences, encouraging them to reflect on, engage with, and take action on environmental issues. The voices and insights of children and young people were integrated into the music with the aim of creating songs that are both educational but critically relatable too. And in a final example, I'll return to Merton Music Foundation, who I mentioned earlier in relation to policy development. In Merton's case, their organisational sustainability strategy was created in partnership with their youth council, a group of 13 young people aged 12 to 18 who attend the foundation's activities. This was done in recognition that, as I say, that young people will be the most affected by climate change. And the strategy was developed for open discussion, with youth council members identifying practical and ambitious actions, from reducing paper usage and cutting plastic at events to using local suppliers and prioritising further partnerships with sustainable organisations. These ideas were shaped into a clear action plan, with responsibilities shared between foundation staff and council members. Once finalised, the Youth Council presented this strategy to the Board of Trustees, who approved a dedicated budget to help bring their plans to life. The result is a live, evolving document that reflects the values of the young people that the Foundation serves and holds the organisation accountable through their lens, helping to embed a culture of environmental responsibility across all areas of the Foundation's work. Now, none of what I've said here is particularly easy, of course, but our findings do suggest that both collaboration and youth engagement are key strategies for music services and hubs to employ as they grapple with developing their environmental sustainability. Thank you, and back over to Rosie.
Thank you very much, Ross. Really interesting to see those examples and great to see that, again, I'm going to bang on about it, that it's youth led and that the young people are having a real impact organisationally as well, with the policy making. Fab. So it's really interesting to dive into the key aspects of the report, and there's lots for everybody to do, including Musicmark. And on that note, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to just have a look over what we are thinking of doing on the back of the report to support our membership and the wider sector. There's some things that we've already been doing. As you mentioned earlier in your presentation, the This Is Not Rehearsal campaign was brought about on the back of needing to start thinking about this more in the sector. And this will continue beyond the conference last year. So the themes that are running through the campaign, and the resources will continue to be shaped by our steering group going forwards. And we are training on carbon literacy. We've got a session coming up actually in the next couple of weeks, which I'd encourage you to sign up to if you haven't done so already. And also we're learning from our own experience. Musicmark is by no means the expert in sustainability, and we've done a lot of soul searching internally to look at how we are doing on our journey, including a carbon tracking for the organisation, resulting in a carbon reduction plan. And we have a partnership with Positive Planet, which our membership can take a discount from as well. So it's something worth thinking about. In terms of future development, there you talked about facilitation of peer learning and support across the country, and this is something we are really keen to do. We run several peer groups already on various different topics, but we will be looking at an instrument repair network, something to bring those individuals together, but also to share the love in terms of expertise over different sort of instrument groups and things like that across the country. So watch the space for that. Linked to TINA, will continue our work on training. Sorry, this is not a rehearsal. We'll continue our work on training, including sessions looking at youth voice and how youth leadership can impact sustainability practices in the music hubs and services. We're also hoping to support our instrument repairers to upskill, but more on this will be coming very soon. And also, I think around the area of supporting creation of meaningful and actionable policies, something we can look at digesting some of the findings of the report and simplifying and helping our membership with that those areas too. There are also plans afoot for us to partner with UCL on a couple of other bits and bobs, which we are in the early stages of working out. But as soon as we have more information, we'll be sharing that with the membership. So just a few bits we're looking at as an organisation and as your membership organisation.